It's my own microphone. Actually, I don't know what it is because it's not me.
Hello.
Hi. I hear like super loud banging. Do you guys hear that?
Was it static?
Microphone.
I hear really loud static.
I don't know what it is because. Well, it did it before you guys were even on. Hi. I hear like super loud banging. Do you guys hear that?
Was it static?
Can you guys see me? It looks like my picture's really blurry.
Yeah, it is really blurry.
Okay, I'm gonna be right back. I've got to go take care of my kiddo real quick, but I'll be back.
No
Okay.
problem. I'm eating ice cream.
I think it must have been me, and I think it was because when I created the link, it like opened another one up. So I was like doubly in it.
Oh.
But then when I X'd one out, then it still was the other one. So I just did both. But anyway,
Okay, good. I'm glad it was fixed.
yes.
I will be honest. I did not read the whole book.
I didn't either.
I didn't realize the whole book was due.
Yeah,
I thought I had to do half.
I didn't realize that until tonight, and I was like, oh crap, and I'm supposed to lead it. So, luckily these aren't worth a ton of points. So,
Yeah.
all right, let me record it. Actually, is it a recording anyway? If it's live?
Yeah, it's live right now.
Okay, okay. So afterwards, I just go to that YouTube link and post it, right?
I think so.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on with my camera, but
Is there something actually
I'm
on your
here.
camera?
It looks like there might be like a crack in the camera. I don't know what's going on,
Oh.
but
I'm sorry.
I'm here.
And we can hear you, so.
Good.
That's all that matters.
Yes.
Okay, let's see here.
So, first question was, having completed the book, how has your understanding and perception increased on the process of international law and policy?
To me, it seems like there's. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. To me, it seems like there's a lot of like politics obviously involved, and it's who you know and where you come from is how you get in to speak at these conferences. And it was really hard for me to understand. I don't know how it all works, I guess. So, from my understanding, it's all about who you know. Because at first it talked about how he was mistaken as someone else that came from a different college and not from BYU or whatever, and that's how doors were opened for him. So
Yeah.
I think it's just like who you know.
It is, and I feel like my husband's in business. He says that like all the time. Everything, if you ever want to go anywhere, it's all about who you know, and it's all about politics and creating a network, and it makes me a little bit discouraged because I like looking at how much it takes to make things into a bill and things like that. I was like, how are we ever going to change anything?
Yeah, I kind of felt like, especially when they kind of pushed him out of meetings by just scheduling too much or saying like, oh, you're only going to have 4 minutes. It seemed like in addition to just who you know, that it was also like, if you're speaking at a conference that's very, liberal feminist, and you're going to talk about conservative family, and a woman's role in the family, then they're going to push you out. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much politics where if you're not talking about what they want you to talk about, then they're either not going to have you speak or they're going to make it as horrible a process as possible.
Yeah.
I thought the logistics of everything was, I mean, that's the hard part of everything. When, like with what you were talking about, Stephanie, how, like, I think it's scary because the UN, they create these documents, but it's not like law. Like, we don't interpret that as law in the United States, but there are still like court rulings that include those documents. And so, like, when Richard went the first time and he was telling them all that these UN documents are influential, like, it may not be law, but we accept it as law, like we use it as such. And people were like, what? I thought we were just, sometimes we agree on things just so that we can go home. We don't really think that it's law anywhere. So that was really scary for me. I just thought that the way that the UN goes about creating these documents, they don't realize the type of influence that they have.
I thought it was interesting how the one lady who was talking to him a lot before speech, she was saying that like people at the UN have a ton of influence, and that's all they really have is the influence to with the laws that they're or the policies that they're making at the UN. And I just thought that was really interesting. The first part of her like dialogue to him was about how influential they can be, and so it's important to it's important to know what kind of things they're passing.
I was really uncomfortable how surprised everyone was that they were making an impact. When like he finished his talk and everyone was so excited, I was like, what did you think you were doing there? Like, I was just so confused why everyone was so excited about it. And I would be so embarrassed if I was that guy from India. Now it's in a book that you just said you didn't care and you just wanted to go home. Can you put this in the fridge?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That this kind of was funny, like, I don't know, who goes to those, first of all? That's what I was wondering. The people that wanted to speak there but weren't influential enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question says, what role did you see the Lord playing in Professor Wilkins' efforts to advocate for the families of the world? What lessons did you learn for your own efforts?
I think the most important was
Go ahead.
Sorry. Like he went as a guest kind of with United Families as a speaker. Like he went as a not very important person. Like he wasn't part of any group really. He was just kind of invited to go because I think it was Susan thought that it would be good for him. And then by the end of it, he was like this celebrity in the UN. And there were like rumors going around, and like women from the Women's Caucus were following him around and persecuting him and that kind of thing. And that just kind of reflects like how things go with the Lord's word. Like we go and we know what the gospel is, and when we start preaching it, people that don't want to believe it obviously are persecuting you for it. And but by the end, we saw that the Lord was definitely in all of his efforts and made it possible, gave him the courage, let him use the words that were necessary. And anyway, so I thought it was super interesting. From the beginning to the end, he went from a unimportant guest to celebrity that was making a huge influence in just 2 weeks, which definitely can see the hand of the Lord there.
My favorite teacher at BYU Idaho, he actually was here. He was one of the, at the beginning, is his name Richard? I forget what his last name is. Well, whatever, the main guy that this is talking about, Richard Wilkins, that's right. He talked about how he brought a few of his bright law students, and my religion professor at BYU Idaho was one of those students that went with him. And so I actually heard this story a year and a half ago from my teacher because I told him I was getting into family advocacy. And so he went over to Istanbul with his teacher, or with Richard, whatever his name is. And the way he told the story was the entire time they had no idea what they were doing. I didn't realize it until I had gotten into the part where he basically said the proclamation to the family to all those people, especially all the fundamental Muslims. And then I realized it was the exact same story that my teacher taught. But he said the whole time they had no clue what they were doing. They would just pray, and they were just awake like 23 out of 24 hours of the day, like trying to research, trying to figure out things. And they were lobbying, and they were trying to sign papers, and they were fighting with everyone that was coming up and telling them they were wrong. And they put him on that stage, and he had no idea what he was going to do. And he remembered the proclamation to the family, and he pretty much just recited it because that was what the Spirit told him to do. And he was expecting to be like ridiculed. Like he expected it to be like dead silent. He thought everyone would think he was awful. And he didn't say anything about it being a Mormon doctrine at all. But he said that my teacher said that the whole room was dead silent, and it was silent for a long, like 15 seconds, which is like a really long time when someone's finished. But then, like, all of a sudden, the Muslims, he said, sat in like one large area. They always kind of segregated themselves from everyone else. And he said that the fundamental Muslims, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and they stood up and just like standing ovation and didn't stop clapping for like 30 minutes. And then he had like a world support of the family, a proclamation to the family, and they didn't know that it was a Mormon doctrine, but they supported it because it felt true to them. So that was really cool to hear an inside perspective of it. He said he'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's really cool.
I wish I could be there.
Oh.
Go ahead.
One thing that I thought was interesting, just like Callie was saying, that of course the Lord guided him in every single aspect of while he was there. But I think it also made him, like, he kept mentioning on how often he needed to call back home to talk to his wife and feel encouraged by her. And I think while he didn't really say that, but it made him realize the importance of having a traditional family in his own life and how that impacted him and the things that he was doing there. And I think that added to his testimony and his of the family and how he was able to portray that to others by having those experiences of his own.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and another thing just on this topic before we move to the next one was I thought it was cool that throughout the book he brought in scripture stories and related things that he'd either read or felt prompted by or encouraged by in the scriptures throughout all of it. And I thought that was cool because obviously the Lord was playing a huge role in his, in guiding his life, and he had to keep studying and praying in order, he wasn't relying on his knowledge and his expertise alone. And when it came down to those 4 minutes or whatever, he dropped all of his expertise and knowledge and gave just pure doctrine, which influenced people more than what he said, those who had ears to hear. And, anyway.
So, quickly, like the last part of that question said, what lessons did you learn for your own efforts? And I just thought, how, he did a lot of praying and a lot of, anyways. And the whole time I was reading the book, I thought, when we are part of the pro-family fight, we're on the Lord's side, and that if there is a message that you have that you want to portray that is in accordance with the gospel, then the Lord is going to help you in whatever means necessary to help you get that point across and to help you reach people and to help us to be advocates in, on his side of the fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it gives us confidence, just like you said, when we know we're on his side. And, we can never be experts in everything. Even we can't be experts in everything regarding the family either, but we can try, and when it comes down to those moments that matter the most, then Heavenly Father's going to bless us with the knowledge that we need to have to, advocate effectively. Okay, the next question is, even though the book was largely about Richard Wilkins' experience, what important supporting roles did you see others playing in this account? Why is this important? Why is it important to recognize this?
Oh, I think it's so important to realize that we're not in this fight alone, that there are other people that are in the same fight that can help us with our efforts. I think that's the most important thing that we can learn.
Yeah, the whole time I was thinking, like, small things, by small things do great things come to pass. Like, I was just thinking about that girl, Susan, who, convinced him to go. And she had been talking to him, every now and then she would just send him a letter and say, hey, could you help me on this? Hey, could you help me on this? And she just called him and was like, I think you should go to this. He didn't even want to go. And I think she played a huge role in him going out there. And then keeping him interested and keeping him involved in what I think the Lord probably wanted him to do. So that's pretty cool to think about all the tiny stories that build up into the one thing. And it makes you wonder too, what you've done in your life. Because I'm sure tiny comments that we've said to people, random promptings that you just feel like you're supposed to say, and it's one sentence and you don't know why you said it, but you don't know what it made them do in their life. So that's cool to think about.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because I think sometimes we just think, well, I answered it really weird, or, because people ask me questions and I'll just say something, and afterward I'm that wasn't the best thing I could have said, but maybe that was what I was supposed to say, but I liked that, like you said, that there's tons of supporting roles, his own kids, his wife, his, the students that went with him and their families, if they had families, all of those people played supporting roles. And the one student that went was your teacher, and he told you guys the story, and I think it's important for us to not always feel like we need to be the speaker, but that being supporting roles in whatever way we can is important. And in fact, I was just like praying the other day about like how can I be a better advocate for the family, and I had this idea, and it's kind of like kind of weird, but I was just thinking that I could, after I'm done with school next year, then I could try to like babysit for couples in our ward, like just try one night a week that any couple that needs it, I can babysit, because really, even though it's not like on a national level or even on a community level, but you know, it's so important, as we know, to go on dates, and babysitters is expensive. And so in that little way, like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know, that could help a lot of marriages.
Yeah.
So I think
I feel that idea from you.
well, I think it's just good to like, maybe we'll think of different ideas, you know, we can all think of ideas that advocate in supporting roles, you know, that we don't always need to think like, how can I speak to the whole community or the state, you know. But
I was thinking also about, I know that's kind of off topic, but I was thinking about having, in my ward, every third Thursday of the month, just the women of the ward get together and they have like a big dinner. And I thought about asking the Relief Society presidency to if I could give a talk on advocacy, because I don't know if a lot of people know, like, there's so many things from this class. Like, I was really, really interested in advocacy, actually from the story my teacher told me about the Family Proclamation and reaching out to other cultures. That story is actually what got me into this. But I've learned so much in this class already, and I think that so many people need to know, and I think maybe we should like ask if we can send an email out to the Relief Society, because I really believe, and I don't mean to be sexist, but if you can get the attention of women, especially housewives, that's why I think Oprah is so powerful. She has all those housewives, and like women run the family, and I think if you can get the attention of women in the home, it can make a huge influence.
especially if women are in the home and they're raising the next generation, which we think is far away, but really that's like not. That's soon. So, okay, I'm gonna ask the next question, and then I'm sorry that if anybody else wants to add to it. The next one is, ponder your readings from a sacred duty. What are some consequences and risks of minimizing or eliminating family and religion from public policy?
I think that family and religion teaches a lot of different things to people, and obviously it gives us really diverse experiences with life and people and values and morals. And if we eliminated that from society, I think a lot of people would be naive in things and really selfish and entitled, and I don't see any positive outcomes from eliminating those things from society.
I think I don't know, just going back to what our country was founded on was religious freedom and being able to, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but it was founded on religious freedom and being able to worship who we wanted, and I think if we take that away, it almost seems like our country won't mean anything anymore. Like, it won't be founded upon those principles that it was founded upon in the first place, and religion gives us morals, and whether people like it or not, I think religion gives us something to believe in and something to give us, I don't know, to help us know what's right or wrong. So if we take those things away from just government or making laws about them or public policy in general, I think our country is not going to be, I don't know, it's not worth it anymore. Or I don't know how to say it, but something like that. I don't know if that made sense or not.
I think, to me, I think that family and religion are the only thing that ties the world together. Because there's not a nation and there's not a city or a town or a country that doesn't have families, doesn't have religions. And it doesn't have to be the same religion. We just all have to fight for the ability to have religion. We don't have to believe the same thing. Sorry. But we just have to... I think if you start taking religion out of things and you remove family aspects, the policies will turn pretty greedy pretty fast, I think. Because you're forgetting the one thing that ties humanity together.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that there was a thing circulating on Facebook, and I actually looked at the credentials of it to make sure it was real, because he's really smart. It was a professor from Harvard, and he was talking about how if you take religion out of a people, then you can't hire enough police to enforce, or keep things running properly, because those, like you said, Corey, those internal morals and things that we have, that whether you call it religion or not, those morals and values of answering to a higher being, that's what keeps you from, the majority of people, from stealing. Or, people don't normally need to know that, all the time. But anyway, the other thing, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. My brain is dead. Okay, the next question is, based on a sacred duty, what do you think we can do about it? Does the author implicitly or explicitly make realistic suggestions for ordinary citizens as well as those in a position of power and influence? Provide examples. One thing I wanted to mention, I liked that they brought up that there's a difference between power and influence, because a mother like me, I may have power in my home with my own kids, but I go into even like a community meeting, I have no power, but by the things that I say, I can have influence. And, anywhere we go, a homeless man can walk into the Senate and say something profound or something that touches people's hearts, and he can all of a sudden have tremendous influence. And that was something that really stood out to me, that I think is a really practical and realistic suggestion, is that we study these topics, the family and other things, and we stand up for it, because the world is taking the family and religion out of everything, and especially politics, and it's basically a anything goes society now. And if you want to have any kind of solid beliefs, then you're a bigot. And I think that we just need to not care about being called that, and just, speak truth kindly and hope that it touches people's hearts.
I think it's just, how you're... Sorry, Corey, I keep interrupting you.
Oh, no, I just say random things. I just said well said. So go ahead.
Stephanie, I can't even remember what you said now. Oh, when you said, I think we just need to not care that we're being called bigots. I think in our position, it's easy to not care, because it's kind of like we can just go home and not worry about it because we have our families, and we have our own little world that we can escape to. We don't have to, listen to all of that. But in the book, Brother Wilkins, he's at the UN, and he's got the Women's Caucus breathing down his neck the whole time, calling him bigots and using words that I don't think that we would take very well. And so I think to some extent we need to care, because I think, at least for me, when people disagree with me, it kind of fires me up a little bit more, and I feel like I need to, add more to my argument and do a little bit more research, and just so people can understand where I'm coming from. So to some extent, I think you're right. We need to just not care. Like, don't get hot and bothered over it. But also, to some extent, I think we need to care enough to where it fires up our passion for what we're fighting for. Because I don't think we really realize how awful it is. And that book made me realize how skewed the world's views are. And anyway, so that was my point. But also going along with this question, Brother Wilkins mentioned in his book about the Family Proclamation, and I pulled it up, and this is what he puts in there. He said, "Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. We call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society." So when it talks about people that are in a position of power, like, how many of us voted this week? Like, did we? Yeah. Oh, yay. So I guess in my mind, I'm like, you can't complain about how crappy the world is getting if you don't put your voice in there, if you don't make your little influence. So anyway, sorry. I'll stop talking now, but.
No. I agree. I think that we don't have to go to the UN to state our views on the family and how we can advocate, but I like what Stephanie was saying when you were talking about how you can just kind of play a little role just for your ward and helping them be together as a family, or we don't have to do big things to be an influence. We can use our circle of influence to influence others, and I think that's the best way to go for myself, is to do it in a small setting rather than a large one where I know I will have some type of influence that will help others along the way.
I'm trying to find a Mormon message I just saw the other day, but I can't find it. But aren't they called Mormon messages? Yeah, it's not exactly what we were just talking about, but I'll post it on the discussion board, or I'll email it when I find it. That was going to be my closing thought for the day, but I can't find it. Sorry.
Great job. Just kidding. Well, does somebody, there was a lot of good stuff in this book. I'm excited to actually, read through it the rest of the way this week, because it definitely opened my eyes to some things, and it largely addressed issues of women, which is us. So it's important for us to know what's going on and kind of hear both sides, so that we at least know, and we won't just stand there in shock if someone starts, going against us. But okay, does somebody want to summarize for 2 minutes?
Real quick, I did find it. It just goes along with what we talked about earlier. I was going to say it and I forgot about playing a small part, I guess.
Are you sending it on here, or will it go through?
Oh, sorry, I sent it to you guys. You don't have to watch it. I just liked it.
I was just curious. I think you can do a screen share, but okay. Yeah, we can watch it after and comment on it on the discussion board.
I don't mind summarizing, sorry. Let's see, I'll look at the outline. So, our understanding increased of international law because we saw that it is about who you know. Sheer will probably can't get you, but you can fight and you can fight and you can learn and you can learn and you can oppress people and you can change minds, and eventually you have small supporters, and then that grows and you grow to. It's kind of about who you know, but you can make a difference. And we saw the Lord playing a role in Professor Wilkins' efforts because we get to look at the outside, we get to see the whole story, and we see all these all these tiny instances of people that had just gently been pushing his compass back north so that he stayed on the right track. And we learned that our own efforts could be doing the same thing, and we don't even know who we're influencing. Then again, we saw the influence of others there. And the consequences and risks of eliminating family and religion from public policy are that it's the only thing that ties humanity together, and it's what our country was based off of, and if we eliminate it, we will have no reason to be loyal to one another and to find good and to protect one another. We could become selfish and not a just nation, and we think we can do a lot of things, whether it's here or going international. We can make an influence, and you can be an ordinary citizen and still change a lot of lives. And that's what we talked about.
Bam.
Boom.
Thank you for doing that, Corey.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So after I close this out, then it's just a YouTube link, right? Or can I push that beforehand? Oops. I already tried it. Oops.
I think you click the live button or something, and then you do the YouTube thing, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank
stop
you.
Wait, what?
If you just end the broadcast and then there's like a little button that says link,
Oh, okay.
and then you copy it, and it will work.
I'll figure it out. I think I did it before, but I just don't remember.
You have to
Obviously.
stop
That's
the
okay.
broadcast first, though. So take it off live.
All right. Well, thank you guys. It was fun chatting with you again.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.